Welcome back to Magus in the Media, where myth, magic, and meaning meet the stories that we love. And today on Myth, Magic, and Meaning in a Fallen World, we are about to introduce you to quite a ride in the world's journey of where we are, where we're going, and where we can find ourselves inside this oceans of chaos. I hope everyone is doing fantastic out there in the world today. Um, you know, every time we go upon this journey, we tend to try to ask ourselves these simple questions of why we are here, what is our existence, and what does it truly mean to be human in this world. And what we try to focus on in Magus in the Media is the stories that we love, fantasy, science fiction, and then we dabble into even deeper themes of philosophy, occultism. And again, it's not mere dabbling because that's what others do. But once you fall upon the initiated adept's path, you find yourself really having to ask yourself some of these real questions. Some of the core questions we're going to allude to today is how do we stay true when the world around us collapses into surveillance, charlatanism, and technocratic control? So what we're trying to work on is how good are we at truly doing these things, right? So this is our episode 3 of Myth, Magic, and Meaning in the fallen world. And what do I mean by the fallen world? Right? We mean by the fallen world is that we live in a day and age where everything is kind of given to us on a silver platter when it comes to social media and everything on in the world, right? You can go to the store and you can really find anything you desire except for healthy food because you have to go to special grocery stores to get that healthy food, right? And then it's like there's aisles upon aisles of crap in in these food stores. So it's like, where do I go when I'm wandering upon the island of these food stores? I have to go around the sides. And so that's an easy allegory to try to understand like what it means to be in the fallen world. Right? In mythology, the fallen world is just that. It's the world of the Matrix, the world of the Kliploth, the world of Malkuth in the Kabbalah. That world of Malkuth in the Kabbalah is both has connection to the divine world as well as connection to the Kliplotic world of the husks and and the hollow shells. And so what we're trying to ask ourselves at the same time is, now that I've finished, again, I've watched and rewatched this brilliant anime. It's an anime. It's called a donghua, a Chinese adaptation of the web novel of Lord of Mysteries. It's probably one of the most brilliant web novels. I haven't read the web novel yet. One of the most brilliant donghuas. I've only ever watched that one donghua. It's one of the most brilliant animes I've ever seen. And it's not just because of that it's an anime, not just because I like those types of things, but it's because of what it's truly trying to portray. Yes, it has the magical intent, the occult and the esoteric. It mixes that steampunk with the Lovecraftian essence of cosmic horror, and it starts to really get to this parts of the allegory is that Zhao, who in the very first episode we see do a ritual, right, a luck enhancement ritual. And just his luck, then, in that enhancement, he gets transmigrated into the body of Klein. Klein is a man who, what do they say on these social medias? Because you can't say certain words. Klein took himself out of the drama, so to speak, and because he was supposedly driven mad, and then Zhao transmigrated into his body. Transmigration is the term that Plato used for the idea of metempsychosis, or the reincarnation of a soul from one life into the next, that reincarnation pattern. And as a lot of anime nerds and dweebs out there are going to say, and weebs are going to say, no, transmigration just means simple isekai, right? Isekai means when a person is transported from one place to the next. One world, the normal world, that of Earth, into a fantasy realm, into a science fiction realm, into a dystopian realm. Well, in Lord of Mysteries, he's transmigrated to Tingin, a punk Lovecraftian realm. And that realm is where Klein has to truly ask these questions, or Zhao is asking these questions of like, who am I? Why am I here? And how do I get along in this world? And that comes back to the core question of today's episode 3 of Myth, Magic, and Meaning in the Fallen World, and why I'm talking about what is the fallen world. Yes, in biblical terms, the fallen world is the world that we live in after the so-called Adam and Eve ate of the apple and were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And some would say that, some really wise maguses, magicians, mystics have said that the Kabbalah, the tarot, the Kabbalah, these two intermingled systems. The Kabbalah is actually the Garden of Eden of Book of Genesis in reverse. It's us trying to get back to the great divine, get back to Kether, climb up the tree as the Magus on its path, us on the path of individuation. And upon climbing up that tree, hello, Kaiva. Thank you for joining us on this lovely show. You love Lord of Mysteries? I'm so happy you love Lord of Mysteries. Everybody should watch it. Everybody should try to understand its secrets, because it's just that. I had somebody on Reddit comment about how something I said is like, Lord of Mysteries uncovers the secrets of the Kabbalah. It has the secrets of the occult. And they're all like, the show is not, they're not showing secrets. And it's like, what do you mean these aren't secrets? Yes, in the beginning it says that then the path of the beyonders, you travel up the paths and the sequences, up these 22 paths. You go from the lowest level beyonder from 9 to 0 and all these things. And it's like, these are actually pretty hidden. The secrets of what it's trying to dictate are, is the major arcana has 22 cards, goes from, 0 to 21 of the major arcana. 0 is the Fool. 21 is the last card of the universe. And it's really important that we try to understand what this is all meaning, right? To go back to the we're as magicians on our path, as we choose to be on the path of individuation, as Carl Jung would call it, the individuated path, the individuated psyche is somebody who is unfolding, who's going through the coega et sole. We're dissolving ourselves. And then as we dissolve ourselves, we are then burning away the dead ash, burning away all that does not suit us, and then recombining to be stronger, to alchemize ourselves on this journey. And that is what we find as the allegory of Klein. Zhao in Klein's body is truly trying to understand himself. And all along in the first episode, and in every episode after that, we truly see Klein in his truest majesty, as the seer, as he picks upon the sequence of the seer, the path of the Fool. The first thing he does when he's trying to figure out what he's doing is he's like going to do something as mundane and get bread, as he's talking to Klein's sister, right? Which is now his sister. And as he's running along, because things just don't seem right in that world, he stumbles upon a tent full of full of an oracle, full of the divinatory path of somebody who is using their tarot cards, a tarot reader. Come to find out that wasn't the actual tarot reader, that was somebody playing a tarot reader, but they truly seemed like they knew what they were doing. And so the first card he pulls is as they lay it down, it's the Fool card. The Fool card is then coming back over and over and over again, and the Fool is truly who is on that path, right? We are all fools on our journey. And that then leads us to this first little thing that I want to play for us, is that as Magus is on our path, there's a lot of allegory and a lot of the stories that we love. And the massive movie that played in my life that truly changed me as a kid on my journey in 1999, on that journey, as I'm sitting there watching this movie in the living room with my mother, it was The Matrix. And The Matrix does truly resemble the path of what Klein is going through. So we're going to follow me, he says. And so I find it to be really interesting how important that scene is. That what ends up being the defining moment of Neo's life. Take the blue pill and stay in Wonderland. Take the red pill and I will truly show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And this is something that we all have to ask ourselves in the life. Have we truly taken the blue pill and the red pill? And that is something I think every morning we have to wake up and ask ourselves. So is this the true question? And the same question that Klein faces in Lord of Mysteries, and the same question we all face, as I titled it for the stream, is that we all face in a technocratic world of charlatans and false magicians. Do we take the easy illusion, or do we confront the abyss? And yes, I agree, Devlin. Thank you for listening on this fine evening. Just this clip of the Matrix, says Devlin, just this clip of the Matrix makes me miss how good movies can be, could be, and should be. Honestly, the first film was such a well-contained story, it never needed a sequel. Yes, I agree that the first film was brilliant and a contained story in and of itself. However, I'm one of them strange people that actually really, really likes the next two. And it has a lot of mythos and archetypes and plot to it as it evolves to the very end of the story. And it should have stayed contained within the trilogy of the three. And I do believe I'm going to have to make videos that then prove my point and my case, because I could and will. I will definitely make a video on the Matrix and its Gnostic mythos of how, the Matrix is the illusion pulled over our eyes, and we must awake from that illusion, awake from the demiurge's grasp, and truly see what is around us. That as Alice, as she tumbles down the rabbit hole, she realizes and has to ask the question, was this truly just a dream? Or did something really happen here? And that's the question we ask ourselves in the Lord of Mysteries. Is Klein dreaming, or is this all happening for him? And it seems like it's all happening. And I think we truly have to envision and act in this world as if everything is happening. And so to move on in this is that, why do I title this, the staying true in a fallen world, right? Lord of Mysteries and the technocratic surveillance system, is because these two things are very similar. In Lord of Mysteries, we have a steampunk cosmic horror, and both of these mirror this technocratic surveillance system that we're running ourselves into, because in both worlds, there are people who are played as pawns, thinking that they're bigger than what they truly are. And you also have the heroes on the journey trying to help not only wake themselves up and level up, become deeper, become their own beyonder, right? Who every day we face this twisting and turning in this pole of like, am I going crazy, or is the world truly mad? Because for those of us who think that for those of us who are seekers, of truth, knowing that truth is an ever embodied and unfolding experience. And as we wake ourselves up daily, trying not to deplenish our dopamine, trying to make sure we're eating healthy and exercising our bodies and minds, that as in the Matrix, there will always be the ones who are yet to be pulled out of the Matrix, that at any moment, Mr. Smith, they call it the Smith effect, could take over, sometimes even our closest of friends, family, associates, that words being magic, as we're coming to understand, that words are spells, that words and grammar, another word that Alan Moore continually brings up in his talks, is that grammar and grimoire are so closely associated to themselves. And so every time we speak, just like in Dune, that we speak, like the voice that the Bene Gesserit have to be able to control people, they must, take their voice into a certain pitch. And as they reach that pitch, they can control others' nervous systems. And some would say, well, that's just mere fantasy. Well, I would say that's ridiculous to think that's mere fantasy, because we control people with our voices every day. Edward Bernays wrote a whole book on it, right? Propaganda. And in writing that whole book, which is really short and everyone should read it, taking the department of propaganda and turning it into what? public relations. This is magic in and of itself. For us trying to understand how do we wake up from these things, that if we see the marketing and advertising that is constantly being integrated into our minds on a daily basis, these words that then these high-level sorcerers, I'm going to call them high-level sorcerers because they truly are doing, well, the devil's work, right? The demonic work, the archonic work of the demiurge. And I mean, and I know for all of you actual, people out there who have studied Gnosticism and whatnot, I know that there are many, many, many Gnostic cults, right? There are many Valentinian, Sethian, there's just so many of them. So I'm trying not to generalize and wrap it all into, all Gnostics view the demiurge as evil, because I know that's not true. But I must, to the general audience, talk about it in a way that when I speak of the demiurge, unless I state it as the Platonic demiurge, who actually is more like a craftsman, molding the world into being, creating it with the Platonic solids, that when I speak of the world, the fallen world, that fallen world was created by the demiurge. And that demiurge I equate in a psychological sense to my own ego. My own ego believes truly that it is what it is. That's nonsense, because the ego has been constructed like a house of cards. That house of cards, as Carl Jung would state, he calls it, well, what do they say? They say, you are a person, right? So let's break down what that word means. Person comes from the term persona. Persona can equate to what? It equates to a mask. We put on different masks throughout our life. And what we try to do in this lifetime is try to truly, using the Matrix, like symbolism, try to pull ourselves out of the Matrix. We try to awake from the Matrix. How does that happen to Neo? Well, a certain amount of synchronicities are set up throughout the first, that they're trying to find the chosen one. Who's trying to find the chosen one? Morpheus, the king of dreams, right? Morpheus, also from Neil Gaiman's great Sandman. Morpheus is the king of dreams. That was created from the archetype of what Morpheus is, right? Him and his fellow people on the Nebuchadnezzar, right? The Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar. So they're taking these mythoses and integrating into these things, right? And then what they're trying to, so these people from the Nebuchadnezzar and Morpheus pull out Neo, right? The one from the Matrix. Mr. Anderson is just a normal name, right? And as they realize that he is the hacker, he's living up multi-lives. He's living two lives. One is the hacker by night, the cyberpunkist. As we all know, in the 90s, the magical community was deeply integrated with the cyberpunk community, and still is to today, probably. But things have changed a lot with the dawning of the internet. But what that symbolizes is that there are people that are rebelling against the system, people who are playing in the nighttime. Those people are, that's how like the technologists of the age are, yes, the sorcerers of this time, but they're also the magicians. And so Neo was a magician at night, an artist, a hacker. And by day, he was a normal like computer programmer, quite boring, just like his life. It was the same thing, monotonous. As we see before he is called by Morpheus, he's like being, scolded by his boss because he was late. Because all night he actually stayed up and he sold, a hacker disk to a person, whoever knows what that was. Interesting enough, side note, when Neo is sleeping, right, and he's in front of his computer, and you get the green MS-DOS like computer coding language, and it pops up and it says, wake up, Neo, right? Same thing we get in Zelda, Link being whispered to by the fairy, wake up, Link, wake up, Link, wake up, Link, wake up, right? And so we go back to Neo, he wakes up, pounding on the door at the same time. A synchronicity happens, a pounding at the door. He's like, oh man, he wakes up, he goes, opens the door, realizes there's a bunch of people there. It's like a trade-off. He's going to give them money, or going to give them the disc, the hard drive disc. He goes to a book. And that book, what is that book? The book is Simulacra et Simulation. So it's a book written by a gentleman by the name of Baudrillard. Brilliant. It's a brilliant book. I don't believe in its philosophy outright, but it still is brilliant because it's really trying to tell us that in this world, we have many different simulations riding on top of themselves. And really, we're just in the simulacra, right? In this simulated world. And that's what we're finding in our world. There's maps on top of maps on top of maps. And even right now, as I talk to you out there in the world, we're having this dialogue that's happening in a virtual realm. We live within a simulation, even if in our life right now, it's a simulation as well. Many movies have talked about this. And so you have to ask yourself, it's a super meta thing, right? Meta meaning beyond, right? Metaphysics beyond our normal everyday natural physics in the world. And what is on there? Just as it's on the screen saying, follow the white rabbit, as he hands them the hard drive he's selling to these, more underground people. Yeah, exactly. And these underground people he sees on her shoulder as they're asking him to come to a nightclub, right? A party. Maybe you should get out, take some of the mescaline, right? Take a psychedelic, come into the dream realm. And then he sees on her shoulder the white rabbit. More synchronicities for the mind. And it goes on and on and on. Yes, as Devlin says, Mr. Anderson by day, Johnny Mnemonic by night. And that is my point, actually, is that we live in such a synchronized, coincidental world that Keanu Reeves seems to be timeless, seriously. He is a man of many skins and many personas, yet it seems like he's portrayed as, in real life, a really, really wonderful guy. Also, John Wick. But Johnny Mnemonic is a great movie, even though it's so campy. It's the Matrix before the Matrix even came out. Virtual reality, going into another realm. Dolphins in water that have high levels of consciousness. You should just watch it. Everyone out there. I can't say it's good, but I'm not going to say it's bad either. And to continue trying to understand how myth, magic, and meaning works in a fallen world and why it's so important in the fallen world is that magical path, the path of the Magus, the path of the adept as they move forward, the path of Klein as the fool. This individuated path as we walk through the world is something that can truly open up to us. It has so much beauty. So even in the fallen world, we must understand that beauty runs rampant only if we have the eyes to see. So let's not get so black-pilled out there. The black pill is really dangerous, and it's just another model to fall into. It's same with the red pill and the blue pill. It's a dichotomy. They call it the Hegelian dialectic. All of a sudden you get people that are red pilled fighting against people that are blue pilled. And it's like, we're not any better, because technically what I should be doing is looking at myself and trying to ask the question is, how many times a day does the blue pill slip into my consciousness and I see the world like that? That no matter what matters in the world, what matters is when I wake up and and look at the people around me, that I can continue doing my practice and embodied work. Thus moving on into what Neo ends up going through, is that he does get pulled out of the Matrix. He chooses to finally take the red pill after being attacked and chased after by the Smiths, right? By the system. And that seems to be something that's going on with Klein on his journey in Lord of Mysteries. One of the many reasons Lord of Mysteries is so brilliant is because it shows how many different orders are out there trying to get knowledge. And what we get in this first season of Lord of Mysteries is we get them trying to get sacred knowledge from whatever this Antigonus notebook is. This family, this rich family, it seems, who, from the prior era. How many times can we say in the world that we're also trying to do the same thing? We have all these great classics in literature and movies, but then we have all these brilliant and cryptic texts that we don't really know what mean, but trying to reveal concealed knowledge. that how important is Lord of Mysteries? Well, when we're finding things to watch and read, when we're not doing our own work in the world, where we're both trying to balance out the disc, the coin, right? Our financial situation, which is really important to have. We're also taking on the many other aspects and elements of that. We're trying to balance out all the elements. And in doing so, it can become an initiate and an adept. That I think people are doing this no matter what. And interesting enough, in one of my videos that I released, somebody asked the question of like, when we're looking at the patterns and we're breaking ourselves free from these things, what about the NPCs? And it's like, what do you mean? Do they also have a hero's journey? That was the question. Do NPCs have a hero's journey? And I say, of course they do. And that's actually the very first part of it. Is that it's not that they have a hero's journey, it's that that being an NPC is the beginning of the hero's journey. That the call to adventure is continually knocking at the door. And at any moment, we can take on that call and change everything in our life. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt, because as soon as you take on the call to adventure, what happens is that things change. And that's when the alchemical process and the disillusionment happens. That now it's time to go on a journey. And it doesn't even matter. You don't even have to like leave your home truly and all that is around you, right? If you're married, you have a partner, girlfriend or boyfriend, a family, like that's another one of the illusions, is that you have to like leave that. And what I'm saying is, when we balance out all four elements, having the grounding aspect of those things is so important, in the rooting. And that's part of that technocratic surveillance, or part of the charlatanism that's out in the world. Is that one of the great mysteries of being is that you must first ground yourself in existence and root yourself to where you're at. Because how can you ever control the elements, the four elements of your own being, if you don't first have the ground to stand on? And that's like one of the first things you do when you learn martial arts, right? Is you learn the roots, the foundation, the grounding. Chinese Kung Fu is something that I love, right? As well as other arts, the mixed martial arts and all these things. But to have a full-fledged system for me and my nervous system and how things work, well, I fell into, Kung Fu as well. And that is one of the, mastery through time, through embodied art of movement and mind. And I find that to be really important in our workings, is because the warrior archetype needs something. So all of us in the world, king, lover, warrior, magician, each individual, no matter if you're male or female or whatever you are out there, you need to find the way to become embodied. And it's through that embodied world that we can, the embodied mind body syzygy is where we can have the foundation to move forward into the world. And let's go back to Lord of Mysteries, because this is, one of the biggest donghua, biggest anime, biggest stories out there for even those, there are people who are like, Solo Leveling is something that everyone should watch. And I can't believe Lord of Mysteries didn't reach an audience like Solo Leveling did. And there wasn't so much hype around it. And that's not what I'm seeing. Even though there's not as much hype and aura farming or whatever you want to call it to Lord of Mysteries, well, the reason is because it's so strange. The occult is strange. And it's strange because it's not the everyday world of Mr. Anderson going to work and getting yelled at by his boss, and just the cars driving and the people walking and the mindlessness and the numbingness. And now what's going on in our world is that is what is celebrated. But instead, Lord of Mysteries is occult. It has like a force behind it, because the symbolism and the plot are truly archetypal. And in being truly archetypal, what that means is that it has these patterns and these forces that are coming from somewhere else. And from that somewhere else is obviously coming from the great pen of the great author, but he has tapped into something that is truly legendary. And that's why it hasn't reached such a grand audience as Soul Leveling and or Demon Slayer. Right now, Demon Slayer is crushing box office numbers. It's beating out DC and Marvel. It's the first time an animation has beat out anything in the West ever. It's one of the most widely watched and made the most money out of all animations, all like anime ever, let alone beating out Superman, Fantastic Four, and the like, right? That's crazy. Anime back in the day, to get on a little tangent, anime back in the day, you had to hide yourself. You couldn't tell people that you were into anime. To any of the people in high school that I went to, right? Like, I wasn't telling them I liked Pokemon or watched Dragon Ball as soon as I got home before dad could tell me I had to go out and do chores and stuff. I wasn't telling people that. I wasn't telling them the reason that I was training for sports in high school. I was actually thinking that I was going to turn Super Saiyan like Goku did at first. Like, that's wild. I hid that. I was just like, no, I'm doing it because I want to be like Michael Jordan. Right? Like, who doesn't want to be like Mike? There's again, the propaganda for being like Mike is brilliant because he was an amazing athlete, but Michael Jordan kind of flied, right? He could fly like Mike, but not like Goku, right? Like, no one's flying like Goku. And then Goku instant transmissions. Michael Jordan's not instant transmissioning to the hoop. Obvious. But I had a dream. And that dream was from these very low-key, nerdy things that now to today are, I believe, helping wake people up. Not all anime is created equal, but we have things like Lord of Mysteries, a brilliant steampunk cosmic horror, Lovecraftian horror. The steampunk is the technology, the baseline, the plot, the setting and the set, the cosmic Lovecraftian horror and the steampunkness are the set and the setting of the story. The occult is the reason that it's not as big as a Solo Leveling, even though Solo Leveling has a lot of Gnostic mythology to it. And you can find that Gnostic mythology in my other videos. I've done videos on that, so please take a look at those. But let's try to understand what this is. That it's esoteric as well. So it's for those who have an inkling, even if you don't know the symbols, you watch it and it makes you feel something. That's the esotericness. That's like you becoming something more than yourself, and it like tingles your spine, like it did that first time we watched The Matrix. And as Neo touches the glass, the mirror, right? The mirror. And what happens? It has this mercurial substance to it, and all of a sudden it overtakes him. The mercurial substance overtakes Neo in The Matrix. I mean, come on. Mercury, Hermes, thrice great. This is the god of magic and language. The mercurial substance, Mercury is also another face of Hermes. These are the gods that are of magic and language. And that's another symbol in the Matrix that people just truly do not understand, is like, what does that mean? It's a very similar thing as we see in the beginning of Lord of Mysteries when Zhao falls into Klein's body. It's very mercurial. And that mirror is like this raw substance that, unless you have a guide to help show you through that chaos, we could get lost in it. And that's what we find in episode 4 of Lord of Mysteries. That magic mirror divination by Mr. Vincent, as Klein is in the divination club. He's just opened himself in there and he's realizing the acting method. Klein is trying to truly take on this acting method that he read in Rossel's diary. In one of the pages of Rossel's diary that no one else can read. That happened to us in episode 2, right? Where we could where Klein could read this. Why? Well, because it was not in like the ancient Hermes language in Lord of Mysteries, or the other one that I can't think of at the top of my head, but it was written in normal Chinese characters. What does that allude to? That Roussel was also a transmigrator. That he was somebody who had did something that brought him into that world from Zhao's world. And in the episode 4 of Lord of Mysteries, it's brilliant. As I rewatched it from normal watching of Inuas in the subs, and then I rewatched it in the dub, there was a lot that happened that was different. I could actually pay attention to it, all the things in the background, who was there, the feathers falling, the invisible feather falling, the magic mirror, Mr. Vincent, like actually understanding what the acting method was and how he realized it. But that the magic mirror in that episode is double-edged, of course, and two-sided. And Mr. Vincent, a soothsayer, some might say a charlatan. That is important in our day and age as well, because we see soothsayers and charlatans all over. They come in many forms, these charlatans, these sorcerers who think that they are greater, and that have totally infatuated themselves with their own ego. Episode 4's Magic Mirror and the Oracle's declaration of the last lamb. The last lamb is Klein, because the sacrificial lambs were Klein and his like 2 cohorts who had the Antigonus notebook. And in episode 4, we get Selena, who was speaking with Mr. Vincent as she walked, as Klein was going to go chat with him, or they were going to have a conversation. Before they have that conversation, she walks past Klein as his spiritual vision is kind of like, he gets the shivers down his spine because he saw there's something going on with Mr. Vincent, and he hands her a gift. Never take a gift when you're in those realms, especially with people that you do not know. Sometimes you can and you get the feeling and it's fine. But if you're an excited, innocent individual who is looking to do something without any real understanding and you get a gift, you should think about what that could mean. And for Selena, it meant a lot. Because in that gift was the magic mirror. The hand mirror. That hand mirror isn't something that is really all that great. The hand mirror is then played with by 3 girls, and Vincent and these 3 girls are then become pawns for something greater. The Aurora Order, not greater as in good, but greater as in evil, really. Greater as in powerful. Some orders and some groups of individuals become really powerful. They become, their egos take hold so heavily that they don't actually, I truly believe that most people think that they're doing good in the world. Even if it's good just for selfishness or good for a greater cause, good for their own family, evil being the lack of good, maybe, as some have said. I don't know, right? I know there is true evil in the world, and we are witnessing it actually in our day and age, which is another reason why we live in this fallen world. Interesting enough, as Mr. Vincent hands Selena this mirror, this package, she thinks she's the chosen one, right? She obviously thinks she's the chosen one. She's got a gift from the great soothsayer. And so in doing so, she's like, wow, look what I've just gotten. And then through the Lord of Mysteries episode, which you can go on to my channel, and episode 4 is either dropped or going to drop really soon. It's a deep one. We go about 40 to 45 minutes of pure intensity of what goes on in episode 4 of Lord of Mysteries and what it all means. And so please go over ahead and watch that over the next few days. It'll be there soon. And then it reflects our modern world. That story reflects our modern world because you get these 3 girls playing with this mirror that was given to them, and they think it's a magic mirror, so they do an incantation to that magic mirror that Mr. Vincent gave it to it, and bada boom, bada bang, powers that they do not know, invoking gods they do not understand, and bad things happen. Klein has to come in as the hero, and he has to save the day, right? Go to episode 4, Magic Mirror, watch it, come to my channel. When it's done, watch that, because you will truly understand what happened. And if you have any questions about anything that's going on in Lord of Mysteries, watch my videos. That's all I'm saying. Because most people don't go as deep as we're going in those videos. And how does that reflect our modern day charlatanism in this occult world? Well, it's the rise of New Age commodification. We have Etsy witches and we have selling of spells. This is utter ridiculous. I hear about it actually out in the day and age. There's people in the world who are psychics claiming that they know things that are beyond the mundane individual's knowledge and saying that they are cursed when they're not, right? If you think you're cursed, what you need to do is you need to figure out and get your shit in line, because you're not. I believe in curses and spells, yes, obviously. But are you cursed or spelled, and can somebody else get that off of you? No, only you can do that. And that curse is negative juju, somebody stealing your loosh. You got a parasite, you got a brain demon, right? These are names and symbols for something that is as simple as saying you need to get your shit in line. You need to break that curse. Can curses be put upon you? Yes. Is black magic real? Yes. Is it also not real? Yes. That's the topsy-turviness of the occult world and the esoteric world, is that when it comes to symbolism, reality starts to bend and shift a little bit. There is no psychic out there in the world that can take a curse off of you. Only you can do that, and only you should do that. But these people truly believe they're doing that, or they're charlatans and they don't, and they're going to hell anyway, in a handbasket, actually. Interesting enough. So we have, and I'm not even making this shit up. There are I've seen it. I've lived in those areas, and you know what? We all start off as charlatans on our path. Not all of us. It's a misnomer, right? It's not true. But we all walk into things and start our call to adventure as the fool. And so as the fool, we are innocent and we think that things are true or not true. And we may not have the correct model or lens to see them through. So we may not have the grounding and the rooting that we need, a true embodied practice, something that gives us a moral compass, and something that you're not rebelling against an outer system. You're actually trying to coagulate solve, trying to alchemize yourself. You're trying to find the Holy Grail. You're trying to become the Philosopher's Stone. You're trying to change your own lead to gold. And upon doing those things, you will start to understand that spirituality, that occultism and esotericism, that true religion, these things aren't all love and light. That each individual has so much shit and so much nonsense and so much advertising and marketing and surveillance thought forms in ourselves that we need to purge that and purify ourselves. And that's where then in Lord of Mysteries, old Neil is saying, he's saying, we need ritual hygiene. You need to purify yourself. You need to have a practice. You need to become embodied. You need to clear your way, right? You need to break free from the matrix. And in doing so, there's going to become a lot of pain, right? Suffering, mahasukha, all is suffering and imperfect harmony. Clear yourself of your desires and work your way through your traumas and realize that only you can truly do the work on this journey. And interesting enough, let's see it. I'm going to show you. I'm not just making it up, right? As we do it live right now. I'm going to show you. Interesting enough, look at this. All I typed in to Etsy was curses, right? Curses. Can you see that? It's so much nonsense. You can, for $4.99, buy a black magic revenge spell. Make those bastards something. Pay for what? And you can get rusty barn nails for $666. Rusty barn nails for $666. That's so crazy. It's ridiculous. Venom of the Veil, black magic removal curse breakers for $11.96. Let's commodify. Let's do. These people are not good people. I knew this was here, but it blows my mind every time I look. Let's move on, right? Because this is sad. And there are people, and I'll state, I'm not going to tell you where they're at. If you know who I am and me, I've probably told you about it. And that there is somebody around, and I bet they're in a lot of major cities, who are trying to tell you that they can pull curses off you, that they are psychic and they read cards and astrology and tarot and all the things, and it's utter nonsense. There are true amazing people out there that read tarot and astrology, and I know one, and she's the best, right? She's the best out there. So and that then also gives each one of us that are also in this community a bad name, because anybody who is telling you to pay for these things, and part of me wants to think of these things as like maybe some CIA, 3-letter agency is creating this, but instead the easiest thing is that there are just idiots out there who think that they can do that. And if they don't think that, they also are just trying to make money off of innocence and those who don't understand. And so again, I think it's utter ridiculous and very unsafe for us who are in this community, the magical community, that there are so many idiots out there that these people don't realize that even though they're trying to make money off of these things, that they will and always burn witches, and that the Inquisition never ended, as Robert Anton Wilson states. As Philip K. Dick says, the empire never ended. It only changed hands. Let's move on. And I'm not going to tell you politically either way or another. It doesn't matter to me what you believe in this. You should believe that human sanctity is the highest order of things and human life is really important. But look at this. Another ridiculousness about Etsy witches and TikTok witches that I think it's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. And I had to find this because the Jezebel took down this article. And if you listen to anything online, Jezebel, we paid some Etsy witches to curse political people and people that they don't agree with. That's also utterly ridiculous. I'm just pulling up the article so you understand that it's real, that people are doing this. And I want, if you're listening to me, and if you're out there, please stop. Please stop. What do we got here? Kaiva Malia Rose. Hearts and smiles. And she also says she agrees. She does. I'm glad you agree. And I appreciate you listening. And I think that it's really important that we talk about this. Because if you travel to any of these holistic expos, or, if you go to San Francisco or Boulder, or you go to any of these places where they have a large spiritual community, right? Spirituality without religion is ungrounded, I say. Why? And I'm not saying dogma is like, you must need it from an external religion, because if you don't have your own moral compass, you need to have something. And that's what dogma is for. And when I was young in my early philosophical and occult training, I thought I wanted to rebel against dogma, and I wanted to rebel against religion, and I want to rebel against the institution and all these things. And as I go on my journey, I come to find out that is naive. Dogma is really important. Why? Because if you don't have some kind of moral compass, armor, or anything like that, I think that you're lost. And I think that you don't actually have a good understanding of where to go from on these things. Because then if you don't have philosophical training or a moral compass or any of these kinds of grounding, and I agree with Kaiva. As she says, such bad karma to accumulate by doing those things. And what she's talking about is how terrible of karma, how terrible is it for yourself if you are a psychic out there and you are telling people that they're cursed. These people are coming to you like you're a therapist and you're telling them they're cursed. And all of a sudden, what happens? What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. And if the thinker thinks it's wholeheartedly and the prover will come to prove those things, the body, mind will move in accordance. And what happens? Reality conforms to what the thinker thinks because the prover will try to prove it. And with that software, it starts to change. And especially if people are coming to you, to people. And again, thank you, Kaiba, for your comments. like this one. I completely agree, 100%. I think that you need to understand that what your words matter, no matter what you're doing. So even if you're a new age girl, a new age man, if you're a white knight conforming to these things and you're going upon your way to try to save the maiden, well, the knight can't save anybody if he can't save himself first. So hit the gym, right? Meditate, breathe, find a practice, embody yourself. As Klein does in Lord of Mysteries. Klein walks around on these things and he realizes the dabblers and the soothsayers. Mr. Vincent is one of them, even though he is a high-level soothsayer. He does perform magic and things do happen. Instead of what I hear out in the community, you have dabblers in things. For instance, of what I've heard in the Wiccan culture, you have little witch talk witches who don't want to perform their own spells or do their own rituals. What are you doing? And then you go out in the world and you just try to spell people. And then bad things happen in the world and then you think you've done good, but really, you know what happens? The Inquisition is on both sides. And what do I mean by that? The Inquisition never ended. The thought police are out there and they're very fast in working their way into the new surveillance track trace database system. And I think we really got to watch ourselves, because the freedom of speech is such it's a beautiful thing and written into the very constitution of our humanity, of individuals. So it's not something that can be taken away. And that's the beauty of the Constitution. But hate speech and things of that sort are being pushed by both sides, which is why it's stupid to take a side and why it's not one ism to the next, but it's ideology in and of itself, that being taken over by an archon or a demiurge, being taken over by, in Lord of Mysteries, the true creator, the Aurora Order is trying to go after the Antigonus Notebook to unlock its secrets, to unlock the secrets so it can, bring the true creator back. Because in that we see him at the very end and he's wrapped in rings of gold and chains and upside down. Why is he chained? And why are there rings of gold around him? This is very interesting. And out of nowhere, you, of all stripes, if you're highly religious and working your way for that of God, who's also most likely the demiurge, wage you witch or, male witch. I don't know. I actually don't know what they would be called. If you're in the spiritual community and you're some yogi trying to tell people how to live their life, but you're living off of somebody's couch, right? And you're running your own sex cult, and it's not even have to be that big. You're just a Chad, but in the spiritual community, going from one spot to the other, taking advantage of innocent people, thinking that you're a strong masculine figure, thus giving bad image to all masculine people, to the masculine, right? To the divine masculine. We're trying to harmonize the divine masculine with the divine feminine. You can't do that by taking the divine masculine out of the equation. We need both. And that is the alchemical marriage and the sacred agreement of the world to bring us back, to find the lost counterpart, to understand the anima and the animus within us. And upon doing that, can we try to understand that we can only have our own path and our own way in our life? So I want to say again, black magic exists, but projection-based curses rebound and strengthen the system. Anytime you out there who are cursing somebody, you don't do it, A, and B, it's only going to rebound against you. Curses shouldn't be part of the magical community. It shouldn't be a part of the Holy Grail path. And if it is, and I'll say that, and it is by the stories we are told, right? We see witches and wizards cursing others all the time, playing this magical game. To me, it's only the Hegelian dialectic at play. We're playing a game against ourselves. Don't be a pawn anymore. Be your own king or queen. And in doing so, you don't need to go up against anybody else, because you truly are just trying to go up against your own ego to walk your path of individuation into the self. And that moves us along, because if you are strengthening the system by doing these things, you are working for the dystopian technocracy that is taking hold around us. The demiurge is grasping itself, just like what's happening in Lord of Mysteries. The true creator is taking over Tingen, trying to be birthed into the world. And in doing so, it's trying to, the Aurora Order is trying to grasp itself. It seems like all these different orders are trying to take hold. It's the same thing that's going on in our world. 23 different occult organizations, cult groups, trying to move the handles of the world. And when really they're like, just, they're not fighting amongst themselves, which maybe some of them are, but what they're doing is they're trying to make slaves of us all. As Morpheus says, you are a slave, Neo. And it's time to wake up from that slavery, and you have the choice between the red pill and the blue pill. And I want us to all be careful, because the surveillance system, the predictive policing, the digital IDs are the modern day Aurora Order, or the modern day whatever. I've only read watched the first season, so I don't know yet all the other orders, but there seems to be this underlying Leviathan that is taking hold, right? The Leviathan taking hold of the Qliphoth and trying to reach its way into the divine. That is the story of the Kabbalah, of the Tree of Life, as in the Hermetic Kabbalah, as we walk our way up. The story of the Garden of Eden. Before the fall, the tree is beautiful and perfect. The fall happens, it shatters. The supernal triad at the top shatters its way. We have an abyss that separates it from the Qliphotic entities at the bottom, the shallow husk that have sparks of the divine within it. So we as individuals on our own path, as we turn ourselves into magicians, as we turn ourselves into mystics, we not only are doing this for ourselves, which we are, we're also doing it for everyone around us. To gather up the crystal shards that are in the Qliphoth and bring them with us into the divine. But we have to make sure that Leviathan that is culminating underneath the surface isn't also then breaks itself into the divine supernal, the Kether, Chokmah, Bina, the goddom up there. It can't. The abyss is there for that. Doth is there for that. That is disconnected from the rest of the tree. It is connected, but you cannot take your ego with you when you go through it. Because if that great barrier wasn't there, the Leviathan would break free and existence itself would most likely cease to exist. Spoiler alert. That's a spoiler alert for the great story. And so in this great surveillance system, the digital ID that we're working on, we have to ask ourselves, are we living in a new Inquisition, one dressed in algorithm and technocratic control? Well, they use simpletons and novices on the path, those who think they're working on their own existence and their own, helping the system, the system that they want to be created, but really they're helping the old system that still is in charge. So I find it really interesting, and I was going to play, and I'll probably play it next time, because I don't think it finds its place in this live stream. But next time we'll play it in the mythos, in the ethos, in the spheres of the internet. Right now is something playing. It's basically like, I think it's a fan-made 2-minute video that shows the dangers of digital ID, CBDCs, and the coming technocratic system that's taking hold beneath us. Where at any moment, Smith can gain just a few dollars by turning you in, right? Thought police turn into, everyone has a phone, and the social credit system can just take from you if you jaywalk. It's a simple mundane thing. If you wake up late, don't pay do the things you're supposed to do that the system tells you. You don't take the right drugs that they want you to do. You question things, and all of a sudden people turn you in, and they get a little bit of crumbs from the archons. People think that they're rebelling, but many are already programmed pawns within the system, just like Mr. Vincent. Just like the 3 girls become pawns to the system, to the true creator. And what does it mean to stay true? What does it mean staying true in a fallen world? And that's kind of what I'm hinting at. That's why I started playing the Neo. The Neo in the beginning, taking the red pill. Stay true to yourself. Understand that you have a Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder, that your conscience is there for a reason, and listen to it. And if it fades, find a system. Find an embodied practice. Religion isn't just the opium for the masses that the manifesto wants to state, because it's not. There are many opiates for the masses, and it has changed, right? Religion is still that when it becomes an authoritarian, literal version of itself. But what can do that for you, and why I find magic and myth as a true meaning in the world, is that if you become the magic, if you become the magician on your path, right? Don't take it on as who you are. Don't tell everybody, it's really important that you just do it, right? They say in the old Christian cults, before Christianity took hold, that you should do the Lord's Prayer. Say your prayer in the dark, when you're alone, in the crevices of your own heart, because that is where the God above God listens. That is where true light listens. The platonic good listens. Whatever that is, the authentic self listens to you when you speak true prayers from your heart. And that Jungian path of individuation, the path of integration versus the path of projection, the path of the New Agey spiritualism, the Gaia TVs and the David Wilcoxes and all the other nonsensical cult leaders out there. Billy Carson, I haven't listened to or heard a lot of his stuff as of lately, but things are happening. And so it's like, we must understand that we don't need those things, because you need to ride your own bike. Timothy Leary stated, turn on, tune in, and drop out. And later in his life, he was like, I shouldn't have said drop out, because that led to overindulgence in all things, because that wasn't the point, the overindulgence. Tune in, turn in, and drop out. And he was riding his own bus, and he was like, don't get on my bus. Ride your own. Be the driver of your own bus. Be the driver of your own nervous system. And don't let advertisers and marketers and Palantir and Facebook and, TikTok and X and all these things, don't let them rule your life, because technically, if you think about it, they're all ruled by the same corporations. The same 3-letter agencies run through these things. So it's time to understand the models that we're looking through, that the map is not the territory, that to do what thou wilt is not to do what thou want, that we must not do harm, that the map is not the territory, that we will continue to say that. I say the same thing when you teach martial arts, keep the elbows in, keep your head up, chin tucked. Let's move with, strength, lower the breath into the lower abdomen, into the dantian. Keep the head back. It's the same thing with your practice. Get in your circle, protect yourself, purify yourself, and cleanse. Breathe deeply. Practice. Train your will, train your imagination, read. Understand first principles. Go to your philosophy books. If you can't read Aristotle or Plato, Iamblichus, Heraclitus, Agrippa, Alphus Levi, any of these great mages, right? Thomas Aquinas, right? Read him. Albert Magnus was his teacher, a great magician. There are many. Read Manly P. Hall. He has got so many books. Just pick them up, because to be an individual means that you are staying true to yourself, confronting your shadow, walking the fool's path, refusing false rebellion. How to be a hero in the age of technocratic Inquisition. Resist charlatanism. Seek gnosis, not ego gratification. Find meaning in myth when society collapses. Now I need to reaffirm, we need magic more than ever. But true magic, not charlatanism. It's not about casting spells with a coven. It's not about doing yoga at a yoga retreat. It's not about eating organic. It's not about talking about all the things that you do with your friends, right? Yet, there are truths in all those things. Go to the yoga retreat, learn about yourself. Eat healthy, find a diet that works for yourself. Converse with your close circle about what you're finding true for yourself and the things that you're hearing, right? All these things are really important, but it's the ego satisfaction, it's the dopamine addiction, it's the taking yourself too seriously. And when that happens, and when you take yourself too seriously, I'm going to tie it back into Lord of Mysteries and Mr. Vincent. What does he do in the beginning? He must degrade himself by biting off his fingers for the master, the oracle, Mr. Z, or however they're claiming that gentleman to be. The person who's speaking is the master, the dark master. And then what does he do at the end? Spoiler alert, he rips off his own arm to gain more power from the true creator, so he can try to give more power to Selena as she's possessed by the demoness to kill Klein, because Klein is the sacrifice that got away. I don't agree with the Dharma Oceans, right? I don't agree with the Shambhalas as they're taking themselves on, as the undercurrent of Boulder is fighting itself with these two forces, right? It may not be happening as much anymore. Now it's a technocratic hub. Google and, AI and Apple, all these things taking over these cities. Once liberal cities that were once fighting for the path of individuation, fighting for the individual. And now they're only creating more drones and charlatans, just handling them out there all over the place. We're just hatching eggs of charlatans and new agers. And again, we all fall for a trap once or twice in our life, 3 times, 4 times, man. I cannot speak to how many times I've fallen for traps, but it's how you get yourself out of them and then how to protect yourself from them. Banish and banish often, invoke and invoke often, inflame thyself in prayer. For thou need the higher and the greater, so I can understand my place in all of the things. And Mr. Vincent and Klein are two opposing forces. Klein is truly trying to figure out where he's at and what he's doing. Mr. Vincent is only doing it for something else, somebody else, to try to bring something from a different plane into this existence, and that is not the point. We're not trying to bring anything in besides the great divine light. Bring it down upon ourselves and bathe within it, so I can, alchemize all of the things that are not suiting me. So I can understand the map from the territory and understand the models, to understand true principles and my existence and what is my myth as the hero on my journey. And so I want to say, and I want to ask, and even if, we're growing here on Magus in the Media. So I want to thank everybody out there who listens, because these conversations are important, and I'm going to continue to bring them up. And I'm going to continue to talk about them, because the political drama of today is only that. It's just political drama. That doesn't mean that there are things out there that we don't need to try to understand and try to see through and between the lines. And so it is important to keep an eye on what's going on, but realize it is you and your close cohorts are true Illuminati in the world. That no one can truly take you out of your world, even if they threw you into the deepest, darkest dungeons. They cannot take over your mind. And if you allow them to take over your mind, that is really hard to get back from. But let's integrate that shadow and let's read between the lines. I want to ask you today, how do you see the charlatans of today? And are we living in a new Inquisition? Thank you for watching Magus in the Media. I'm here for you. always. And until next time.